in Muzi Sikhakhane. Let's get straight into the LPC, the whole transformation of the sector, right? Advocates were governed one way, lawyers, attorneys another. This seems to bring that whole thing together to almost standardize how the profession sees itself, etc. A good thing, and if so, why do you think there is a need to continue those old structures that govern advocates this side and lawyers and attorneys on the other?
Yeah, there isn't. And I think people can voluntarily be associations as we are in order to deal with their members, probably too. We do that because we also want to ensure quality. And so in a way, people organize themselves as bars in order to discipline their members more in different ways than the LPC would do. But I think it's a new thing and it's important, and I think we have to support it because I think lawyers are like journalists. And politicians and judges, those four categories of people, their capacity for self-reflection is very low.
Absolutely.
And also they don't take kindly to accounting, being accountable.
Even to their peers.
Even to their peers. And so in a way, when there is a new system that compels them to account to somebody, and there are cries about independence and all of these things, but I just think it's because people like self-government, and not to be checked by somebody.
Someone else. Who they may be looking down on him, that person.
Absolutely. But also one structures that want to self-govern. Pockets of resistance. It's people who want to keep see things and how they see people. And I think it's the story of South Africa, not just law, that there is resistance to moving forward, and there's resistance to changing things so that those who were on the margins of the human condition are on the mainstream. And I think that happens in different, but I think
it happens in different sectors. I mean, earlier when I was talking about how the corporate sector also just resists change. So you'd find that people would do a big deal, but within this big deal, they'll keep a pocket, or they new one, you can be empowered there, but this one we keep away from you, you know. And when you look at various aspects of society, you find that this sort of replicates itself. I don't know what we're going to do if this is happening within the justice cluster. Then we are in trouble.
I think, JJ, I mean, let me venture into some political analysis of that. I think that you can trace South Africa's problem back to the nature of our political settlement. And so our legal system, our economic system, and different aspects of society all spring out from the nature of our political settlement, which is, gee, let's tinker with this system called apartheid. Let's not change it completely. And let's deal with it in such a way that, South Africans and its leaders had a habit from day one of 1994 of wanting change that does not offend the former colonizer. And so in a way, we are a bit averse to offending systems that oppressed us, and we want to tinker with them. And I think the legal system itself requires that courage, that bravery to radically confront what it is. Because if you don't, you may have a constitution that actually cements what you thought you wanted to change. And that is why the land question is being debated and many other things, because we are a nation whose political settlement was largely founded on trying to impress the international world and probably the liberal outlook of things. And we've not been able to really have a debate about what does our law mean to Umama who's sitting in Ramondo, in Toyando, in Guamashu. What does it mean about their disputes? And I think that's what we need to do. And if we do that, JJ, we increase the way, we change the manner in which we train a lawyer, we will then have better lawyers. We'll then have better judges. who are qualified, who are courageous, who are brave, who are not afraid to confront powerful people, wherever they may be.
You know, you are raising a very important issue about the training of lawyers, that the whole issue of access also starts there, that the way lawyers are trained in itself is inaccessible, right? I mean, if you're an advocate, you got to go 1 year without a salary so that you can do practicals. Well, that's what it is really. You're doing practicals in that year, and then you are not paid by anybody. And a lot of people have been discouraged from pursuing that. Mama Christine Kunda telling us that they are looking at that in terms of how, you know, maybe there could be funds that could support advocates who otherwise would not pursue that route, and so on. Why do you think it was structured that way? Why in the first place, was nobody thinking about how will these people survive? Or was it because people who pursued that route of being an advocate were people who already were working and they had been working for many years, and nobody thought that somebody fresh out of university may actually want to pursue that kind of career?
Because this profession has its roots in racist South Africa. It has its roots in allowing only white people who had resources to practice. At a particular time, Judge Ismail Mohammed, when he started practicing, he was not accepted to practice from a toilet. Dumanoke was not allowed to. So in a way, this used to be a profession of judges' sons. And so it reproduced itself into that. So, and that tradition never changed. You'll be glad to know that from January, our bar, the Pan-African Bar Association, we will be paying people who come in from our own ways as advocates, as that group, to make sure that they are able to practice, in fact, to be trained without the stress of really having nothing. You know, it's not a salary. We're not going to pay an executive who comes from Coca-Cola to be an advocate. We're not going to meet their salary, but we're going to make sure that they do not starve while they do this, while they sacrifice. And I think many different bars, in fact, the LPA, the Legal Practice Act, it's still lagging behind, but it provides that we should do that. And in a way, we will be able to make sure that people are able to survive. And in the manner in which you structure your curriculum and how you teach, we're also trying to make sure that people don't lose their jobs just at the first month before they decide to come. There are many women I've seen destroyed in this profession. They resign, they were CEOs to come to the bar, and then at the end of the year they fail.
They actually fail the program.
They fail the program.
And they've already abandoned their other career choice.
Absolutely. And we need to know, those of us who come from those communities that have had to battle, that as we open access, we need to keep people in that profession, but those people must be good. And how do we do that? Is that we produce, I think we've created what we call, I think it's the first time, the School of Advocacy, that is in Pabasa, which is to train lawyers. We're taking just under 20 people. You train them as a pilot project. You pay them a stipend, because we believe that the reason people have, the reason you want to go to a Lehoa for a lawyer is because in our minds, we still believe that skill is white. And of course, because of the history of exclusion, it can seem that way. And what we need to do is to train our very talented people who don't have access to resources, who don't have access to work, to train them in such a way that you have no excuse not to go to her or to him. And I think it's going to take time, but we need to take radical steps to do it. And that's why, for the first time, we formed a bar that is African, unashamedly, and it's predominantly women, because we're trying to turn on its head that colonial, patriarchal history
and mindset that in a sense persists in the current in the current setup. A lot of people have said that the justice system, in the context of what's been happening in the South African political landscape, seems to have been the last line of defense, right, for South Africa. Do you share that sentiment, or is this an exaggeration of what the legal system can do to fix things that are purely political?
I'm very critical of how our political system has used our courts as a site of struggle. And I know that in the past it was, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be, because yes, it's our last line of defense, but we do run the risk of, once you take politics, too much politics into law, politics is followed by its flies. I call it its flies. Things like bias, populism, fear, and all of those things that come into it. I watch a lot of the debates with your guests about the law, and you realize that we are unable, because of how much we've politicized our courts.
Political bias.
We are unable to realize that actually this should be a place in which we go to people who themselves look at the law, not at the individuals. Not the
and look at it
dispassionately. And politicization of things like corruption also corrupt the law. Because then you force a lot of people who are in the judiciary to make choices. And some of those choices may not be good. You may like them when they affect someone you don't like. But you must create your law to defend even people you hate.
Don't like, yes.
So that in future, when a bad guy is in charge, you know you can go to the court.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to change the entire system in such a way that we produce better judges. I'm not saying the judges we have are bad, but I think we could do better.
Well, I suppose if we're talking about transforming the system, there should be no holy cows.
Absolutely.
We should be able to assess even the work of our judges. And I don't think that is a culture, isn't it? There is always a trepidation of some sort. When somebody criticizes the judges, either they do it in the extreme because it's just a political thing, or these people are counter-revolutionary, or these people are God, don't touch, don't criticize them, don't critique their work. I think we are a polarized society where that is concerned. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you, JJ. I don't actually subscribe to the system that there is someone who shouldn't be criticized. You earn from society the right to be treated with respect. You don't get it as a matter of your position, as a matter of course. So I don't buy this thing that judges can't be criticized. Of course, I'm not saying they should be insulted. But I do think we must critique the manner in which they do their work. Because, they are repositories of public power. And we are entitled to say we are not happy with the manner in which you exercising that, just like we should with every politician in the executive and others who are lawmakers. And this idea that there are people, sometimes when judges say criticize us but nicely, they remind me of someone who wants to give you a hot clap and he tells you how to cry. He tells you, don't criticize me this way, criticize me that way. And I think you should earn that. And how do you earn it? You earn it by having integrity. That's the first thing. And two, society may not like what you do. Powerful forces may not like what you do. But as a judge, one of the most important things, because in modern society, unlike in feudal societies, where you have the king and the rest, in modern societies, power is located in different places.
Absolutely.
There is no point in calling someone an independent judge simply because you like their judgments against government or against the minister all the time. When they are actually scared of business, they are scared of the media, they are scared of NGOs. A totally independent human being is the person who does not subscribe to pleasing power wherever it's located.
Anybody must be able to take on anyone in any category.
And that's a judge. That's a judge. And one of the weaknesses we have, and it's a debate for another time, and maybe you'll have it with the judges, we must really analyze in South Africa which practitioner becomes a judge. If you can analyze since '94, who becomes a judge in South Africa and why? Is it a sacrifice? Is it because people have reached the age of 50 and they want pension by the age of 65? Is it your top lawyers who become judges, who apply to become judges? And if not, why? And you need to analyze that openly so that you don't get a guy who actually has never stood in front of a court all his life.
Yeah.
And suddenly,
and then suddenly he must come and debate with you.
No, he has never written an opinion in his life, and suddenly he must write a judgment. And we must.
That's crazy. Do we have people like that, Joel? I would have expected that would be a natural, in a sense, qualifier for a judge, that they must have been on the other side.
I'm throwing this to you because it's a debate for another day. If you do your research about our judges, how many of them have practiced at the highest level at which they are on the other side? You do your research, and I think if we have to be honest, we have had to deal with the fact that the African National Congress, the ruling party, at a particular point had to make sure that there is transformation of the judiciary. Yes, and that's true, and it must happen. But as the Chinese tell you, when you open windows for fresh air, flies come in as well. And so,
okay, let's pause it. They will come back and round out the conversation with Advocate Muzi Sikhakhane. Absolutely fascinating stuff. I want to understand after the break. Can we therefore, right, not be dismissive of the fact that the judiciary, right, themselves may have an element of capture? And I know that that's it, flying close to the wind because, of all of the things that you have to do. But I want to understand that therefore, if we think that that's so, what are the checks and balances within the judiciary itself? And lastly, there's been a big debate about judicial overreach. Almost touched on it a little bit about how this can be the line of defense, but at the same time, how the politicians now have run to courts. I mean, right now, even a political party inside, dissolves its Congress and people rush to court to get that nullified. It just becomes just crazy. All right, we will step into those discussions straight after the break.